of Right. We're going to be interviewing author Tom Frye on his book, Here There Be Dragons. Tom, could you explain a little bit about the plot for Here There Be Dragons?
Well, when Billy Connors was a little boy back in County Cork, Ireland, he found a magic window. It had a depiction of a dragon with a emerald in his claws and his talons, and it had a castle on it, had a lake on it, and he just fell in love with that window, and he vowed it'd be his one day. Well, that window was made by the gypsies of Ireland, and they were in cahoots with the elves of Ireland. And it's a magic window. It's a way station. It's a key point in transferring people to other realms.
Okay.
And Billy had that placed in his pub in Havelock, called the Havelock Emerald, and that's why the whole series is called the Havelock Emerald series.
Ah.
And this window has powers to it and magic to it, and it transfers from that window to the dragon room, which Billy has in his back of his pub, and he's got a sign saying, "Here there be dragons," and there really are dragons.
Really?
Yeah.
That's unusual. All right.
Yeah.
Tell the people, if you would, a little bit about what makes your town, Havelock, the way you've created it, special.
Well, I grew up in Havelock. I lived on Benton Street, which is a part of Havelock. It's a small suburb in Lincoln. It was an Irish Catholic suburb and founded by a bunch of Irish railroaders. And they made about 6 pubs on Havelock Avenue. And Unai and Bethany, which was another 2 suburbs, they didn't want Havelock annexed into their suburbs because of those pubs. And
I see.
And so Misty's is the main one. Was owned by Robert Melton, who was an IRA sympathizer and a patriot. And he sent money back to Ireland, and there was a plaque hanging in the pub from the Irish Republican Army dedicated to Robert Melton. And I read it one night. I got up on a stool and I was reading it, and he got madder than hell at me and told me to get down off the stool. And I asked him what that was doing in Havelock. He said, "That's none of your damn business."
Really?
Yeah, but I found out the Klan burned a cross one night on Havelock Avenue trying to get not black people out of here, but Irish Catholics.
Really?
Yeah, and my friend broke down a wall one night when they were refurbishing a building, and he found robes and flags and all kinds of Klan memorabilia and the meeting room where they used to meet.
Wow.
Yeah, and so Havelock is just a unique little suburb. It's only about 4 blocks long as far as this business district go. Got a small park, got a baseball diamond.
Wait, only 4 blocks long?
Yeah, it's only.
Yeah. That's kind of short, isn't it?
Yeah, Reason and 8 Ball tells Boone Havelock got gypped.
Yeah, I see, right?
And all the 3 producers that I met that wanted to make a movie out of Scratching on the 8 Ball, they were really taken back by this. They really thought that this would be a great place to film a movie.
Oh, really?
Because of the sewer system, the baseball field, the Havelock Business District, the railroad yards. And then each one of them bowed out. They never did contact me. They met me at the Isles, the pizza place. The owner used to joke around and say I had an office in there.
Yep. All right. Explain, if you would, the relationship between the characters, Billy Connor, Khalid Kareem, Stone Holland, and Lucas Holland, to our audience. We're going to get into the first 3 or 4 chapters of this one, Havelock Here There Be Dragons. Sure. And explain, if you would, the relationship between the characters.
Well, Billy Connors is the Irish godfather of Havelock, and he's the one who owns the pub, and he's very crotchety, but he also has a no drug policy, and he's got a agreement with a cartel in Florida that drugs are not to be sold in Havelock. And he's got backing from 7 biker clubs who agree with him. And he basically runs them. He's basically their head man, and they respect him. And Stone Holland was a special ops guy who served time in the military, and he belongs to one of those clubs, the Elders Den. And,
Okay.
and his son is Lucas Holland, and Lucas Holland is the whirlwind in the book. He's the kid with the bad anger problems and needs management.
Right.
Caleb Karim is based on a Iraqi anti-terrorist group called the Falcons. And what the Falcons do is they go all over the world shutting down terrorists.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And I changed the name to Phantom. I made them the Iraqi Phantoms, and that's who Caleb is, the leader of this group. And he's come to America to thwart the terror plot of extremists who wants to kill military dogs. In Mosul, in Mosul, there was two X-ray machines left behind, and ISIS was trying to find them. This really happened, and they couldn't find them. And an American group of dog handlers found them, discovered them, and did away with them because you can make dirty bombs out of the X-ray machines.
Wow.
And so these ISIS was made fun of by the world because they couldn't find them, and so they want to kill these dogs. There were dog handlers who found them, and so it was an insult to them that the dogs thwarted their efforts to find these dirty machines. So that's Stone and Caleb and Lucas and Billy, kind of wrapped up in a nutshell.
All right. Now, could you tell us about Lucas Holland's rock throwing experiment?
Yeah.
Kind of started the whole book off.
Yeah. Well, it really wasn't Billy's fault, but Lucas blames him because Stone Holland and Caleb are sent through the Dragon Room to hunt down this extremist. And they're hunting down these 2 gods who came back to life, Baphomet and Moloch. And they're sent to Egypt to try to hunt them down. Well, Lucas blames Billy for that because his dad, was a special forces guy, and he's now a biker president. And Lucas wants him back, and he's very mad at Billy for doing it. So he remembers his Uncle Nate one time said he was going to take a 357 and blow out that window at the Emerald Pub. And so Lucas gets this idea to go down there, and he takes a baseball bat and he takes a couple rocks and he heaves the rocks and he swings and hits the rock, hits the window, and gets absorbed into the window. And Lucas is like, he's shocked.
How old was Lucas at the time, by the way?
11 years old.
11 years old.
Yeah. And he throws another one, and then he goes to swing at it, and he actually falls forward, and instead of a million pieces of glass shattered all over him, he falls right through the window. And he ends up inside the pub, and he's just shocked.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course, Billy comes along and hears all the commotion and goes after Lucas. And Lucas runs, and he runs into the Dragon Room. And that's where you get zapped into an alternative realm, and yeah, that's the rock throwing incident.
All right. Would you say a little bit about the Emerald Pub and what role magic plays in it?
Well,
like the window, I understand is magic, right?
Right.
And what else is magic about the place?
Well, see, Reason, which is Billy's grandson, Reason plays a part in all the books. He starts as a defiant youth in 8 Ball. He starts a youth program because later on in life he becomes a youth worker and he starts working with kids. So
right.
he designs a game based on an alternative realm, and he calls it Balasar, and it's medieval, it's knights, it's dragons, and castles. And he designs a game, an alternate reality game, virtual reality, where the players are they're taken into the game. I don't know if you ever played a virtual game before, but you put on a headset and
Right.
you use hand controls and
Yeah, my wife has one of those.
oh, that's cool. And he gets zapped into the game, and so he wants to use Lucas for the well, Billy Connor wants to use Lucas for the tester, the play tester, and reason is against that because Lucas has too bad of a temper.
Right.
And if you've ever watched some kids that have anger problems play a video game,
Oh, yes, I see.
yeah. So he gets Alex Thorne, who's a gypsy boy, about a year older than Lucas, and a nice demeanor, very calm demeanor, and gets him to play the game, to play test it, because he wants it approved by the juvenile judge here in Lincoln and youth workers and DARE, and he wants to be a positive experience.
Right.
And he figures if he puts Lucas in there, oh, it'll just go to pot,
Now,
So,
see, how did they get into the magic portal? I understand that the window is magic, and Lucas gets in place that way.
Yep.
And when he steps past the door to the magic portal, is it really a magic portal or a virtual reality portal?
No, it's a magic portal. There's six different windows, and they lead to certain locations in the land of Alisar. And you see dragons in one portal, and you see winter scene in another, autumn scene in another.
Now, are they real or are they virtual dragons?
Oh no, they're real. They're real.
Okay. Okay. So there's magic in the portal, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I haven't figured out a way to dress them. That's my biggest thing on that is how do they get dressed in medieval costumes?
Right.
I just kind of take it for granted that they are dressed in leathers and dressed in medieval garb. But but yeah, Lucas ends up running into one of those doorways to get away from Billy, and he ends up in the land of Alisar, and he ends up at a place called the Lodge. And the Lodge is a way station, kind of like Rivendell in the Lord of the Rings.
Right.
It's a place for travelers to pass through, and there are huge stained glass windows on either side of the round doorway of this lodge.
Right.
And, one has a harp on it, the other has a sword on it, and it's a library. It's a rest place. It's a healing place, and Lucas ends up going there. And I won't say no more until somebody wants to read about it.
Let's see. It's appropriate this time to tell our viewers what the meaning of the title is. Here there be dragons, because you alluded to dragons in your earlier description. What does it mean, here there be dragons? Is it related to the world they step into, or?
Oh yeah. There are 7 dragons there who have personifications of evil, and they have a
the dragons are the personification of evil, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And they are subdued by a sorcerer named Cain Sin, who uses a ring to command them, and he has them instill and empower these fountains of water into potions, and they're conduits all over the land where these fountains are. It's a place of prayer. It's called havens. They have haven woods behind every manor, every castle, and in these haven woods are these fountains. And what his plan is to addict people to these potions. They're very addictive.
Okay.
And so that's the purpose of the dragons, is they're evil. And but there's a main dragon. His name is Drakvorin. He's ancient. He's a very evil, conniving. You can't use power on him. He's immune to the power of the rings.
Really?
Yeah, and he plays a big part in the book because his daughter is a white dragon, and she's very pure and very humble, and she's against everything her father's ever done because he terrorizes the land. And there's a conflict there between those two, and then those seven dragons come into play. And I won't say if they're against him or for him, but
right.
You know, there's a lot of aerial combat goes on.
Well, now introduce us, if you would, to the Silverhaired Swordsman Yearbook.
Well, that's Trax, Prince Trax, and Trax Dyer is his name, and he's a demon. He's a dark being.
He's a demon. Okay.
Yeah, he's a dark prince, and he's a big muscled guy. He's bare chested, and he's tattoos, and he got long silver hair, and he's a swordsman. He uses his sword, for his power, but he is he's the catalyst for the evil in the book. And Cain Sin is a sorcerer who's a bad guy, and his son Hunter Sin is a 15-year-old kid who gets influenced by this Trax Dyer.
Right.
And he sets it at all his war councils, and he influences them and tells them what to do and how to thwart the light, the sources of the light, and the servants of light. So yeah, he's this Trax is a really bad dude, and he uses spells and magic, and Hunter Sin is just a snot box, and very immature kid, and he uses magic. He's got the power of magic.
Right. All right. Could you recite, if you would, the beautiful song in the third chapter and tell us about its meaning? I'm particularly interested in its meaning.
Well, okay. This is a poem I first used in Stagheart Woods. And I borrowed it for this book too, because I can take the liberty to do that. But it starts out, kissed by the sun, embraced by the morning, the forest sheds her cloak of night. She slips into a gown of mist, she wove herself by morning light. In amber rays the forest dances, in hidden glens within the hills. Barefoot she glides through open meadows, tiptoes her way past silver rills. Her gown of mist trails behind her, fluttering in the morning wind. Adorned with gems and sparkling jewels, the rising sun did surely send.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine, he's another writer, Gary Gablehouse, late Gary Gablehouse. He once wrote about himself, I'm a sad, fat man, but when I tell a joke, it cracks like a whip. And I thought, I thought that was so unique. And so I started thinking, my poems crack like a whip, most of them. I mean,
yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So I include them in a lot of my stories. I interweave them in there, and they become either songs in the story or poems in the story, or a recitation by one of the characters.
But tell us, if you would, about the meaning of it.
Well, Lord of the Rings had going for it the forest, the streams, the rivers, the trees. Everything in that book became a haven for me. When I got to struggling with all my kids I worked with, I'd go back to Lord of the Rings and read it. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and find peaceful times and find gentler themes and concepts. So I wanted my books to have that kind of theme too, where people can get off to a forest or a cabin or a cottage or a kingdom and kind of get lost in it for a while. And so that's
right.
kind of that's why I add nature into my stories. I think Tolkien had different reasons, but he was on track. I mean, gosh, those hobbits were fun-loving forest folk,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you still haven't told me the meaning of the poem.
Well, it's about the forest and about how I
Yes.
live that she's the queen. She's the queen of nature. Mother
So it's
nature.
telling the story about the Queen of Nature, right?
Yeah, yeah, and how she slips on her gown of mist and the sparkling gems and yeah, the backing of all that. It's got different meanings in the whole poem, and
Right. It relates back to the story too, right?
oh yeah, totally, yeah, because that's when the Jewel folk they're introduced in one part of the series. One of them is singing that song.
Well, let me ask you this: Who are the we writers, and who are the Jewel folk?
Okay, I really wanted hobbits in my story, but I can't borrow from Lord of the Rings. I couldn't borrow from Tolkien.
Right.
I read Dennis McKiernan's book about the Warrows, Warrows. They are Hobbit like. Somebody said he copied, from Lord of the Rings. I didn't really care. I liked the series. I liked his Wee Folk and his stories.
Right.
And I haven't found any other stories that included little folk. George R. R. Martin had, the Children of the Forest, and that alluded to hobbits, I would think.
Right.
But in my story, I had to have a beginning for them, and so I had a dwarven king and an elven queen, who were forbidden by sages and wise folk never to commingle their races, and
Ah,
they were captured by a dragon and held prisoner for a year as and held for hostage. And during that time, they fell in love. And the king of the dwarfs and the queen, they married in secret, and they had a child, and her name was Che Lindrio, Queen Che Lindrio.
now,
And
is the King of the Dwarfs and the Queen about the same size?
oh no, no, the dwarf is probably about 5 feet tall,
Right.
muscular, looking like a blacksmith, like a Viking. Um,
And how
and
about the Queen?
and elves are, about 6 feet tall, slender, and fair haired. And
That's quite a height difference,
yeah, yeah, but it's
but they
fantasy.
loved each other nonetheless, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so instead of naming the race Chalindro, he calls them Chakin. They're the Chakin kin.
Okay.
And so yeah, they little folk, and
Those are the Wee Riders.
those are the Wee Riders who play a big part in this battle that was a ancient battle that took place where they used their jewels on their swords to empower their swords. And
That would be make them the Jewel folk.
yeah, yeah, they called
Okay.
them, the king of the elves called them the Jewel Folk after that, because before they were banned from being part of the races because dwarfs
Right.
and elves thought they were children of the night, thought they were demons,
Ah,
and these swords are like lightsabers. They light up and they're multicolored, and I just picture it so clearly when they draw their swords all together and they ride these little black stags. They're called Windar, and they're little black stags, and they got blue eyes. And the Jewel folk ride them, and they go into battle with these shining, twirling swords. And
right. Now the battle scene is exciting. Walk us through that, if you would, with particular emphasis on Trax and Peyton Ring.
okay, Peyton Ring was a side character in the beginning of my whole series.
Right.
I I played Dungeons and Dragons for 7 years, and Peyton was one of my characters there, and his
Ah,
his personality came to life. He was a kind of a shyster, kind of a con man, and but he plays a big part in this whole story. There are three Chaikin who play a big part. Tanner Silvertree is the huntsman. He's called the Legend Weaver, and he weaves stories, and people, when he tells a story, people see the story and see the images, and it comes.
That's
to
why he's
life.
called the Story Weaver, right?
Yes, the Legend Weaver.
Yeah, Legend Weaver.
Yeah, and his best buddy is Peyton Ring, and Peyton is a Chaykin who great swordsman, and he goes up against Trax, and that's phenomenal because this guy is a superb swordsman, this demon.
Really?
Yeah, and Peyton goes and defends Alex and our Lucas, and tries to save him. And there's an intervention. I won't say what that is, but neither one of them defeat each other. The sword fight ends, and
Okay.
Peyton appears in all through all the books. He was a side character, and then he became a main character.
Now, how does Trax fit into that? Trax was his equal or better than him, or?
Oh yeah, Trax was way better. He's a master swordsman, and he uses spells while he's fighting, and where the jewel folk don't use really spells at all. They just use their sword ability, their fighting ability. Right. And yeah, so I won't say who comes to save the day, but you'll have to read the book to find that out.
Well, we'll get a little bit further into the book next episode.
Yeah.
Right. In the meantime, how do people contact your website?
Yeah, www.tomfrye.org.
All right. On Facebook?
Tom J. Frye on Facebook.
What is it again on Facebook?
Tom J. Frye.
Okay.
And I've got about 3,500 friends on there that regularly read my stuff. I post stuff every day.
Well, I can see why.
Brief stories. If a new book's coming out, I post that and promote that way.
Do you use them kind of as your beta readers, or?
Yeah. This last book, Dogs and Diamonds, I had 7 proofreaders read it for me, and they all come up with something different. I mean, they saw something different that somebody else didn't see, because
right.
You can go over a book 20 times and you're gonna miss a or a the,
That's one fun thing I found in publishing. You can editors can go over a book, copywriters can go over a book, illustrators can go over a book, everybody looking for errors. And when you finally publish the book, when it comes out, you can open it any place you want and find an error.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, all right, Tom. Until next time, your publisher is whitecappublications.com, and we'll look forward to seeing you then.
All right. Well, thanks, Rick.
All right. Bye-bye.